So you're all school leaders. Do you know what your job is? What do you do? What is school leadership? Well, one of the things we think is really important at Leadership Matters is to have a little simple model to underpin the way we think about leadership. And there's probably nothing better than Steve Radcliffe's model. It's beautifully simple, it covers everything. It's called Future, Engage, Deliver. So let's just have a quick look at those different elements. Future, first of all, is really thinking about what is it with your team that you want to achieve? What's your vision? What are you excited about? What do you want to, as he would say, get up to in what you're doing together with your team? And what are the values that underpin that whole approach? So the future is all about your vision, your strategy to get there, and the values that underpin what you're trying to do. So that's the first thing. Second thing then is saying, this is about leadership. This isn't about doing everything yourself. So engaging with people, getting them really bought into, really caring about, understanding, getting them aligned to what you're trying to achieve, absolutely critical. Because then it's not just what you're doing, it's what you're all doing together. And really what you're doing as a leader is enabling a whole bunch of other leaders to make stuff happen in your school or in your team. So that's the second thing. And then thirdly, and I don't need to remind any of you about the importance of this, it's about really strong quality delivery, making stuff happen really well on time to a great standard. That's really what the product has to be, doesn't it, for the children? That's what they deserve. And that's about really good planning. It's about turning those great teams that you've been creating with that engagement into really strong delivery for the children. And then monitoring that, making sure it's what you need to do, learning from that, recycling it, and then going again and reworking what you're doing, constantly improving all of the time. So that's the model, Future, Engage, Deliver. FED, really easy way of remembering it if you want to. But I think it's a little bit more complicated than that, and in fact, of course, F, E and D interact with each other. So I came across this model, and we use this a lot at Leadership Matters. It's David Pendleton's, what he calls his primary colours model. And being the three primary colours, there are three elements to it. The first is, and you'll see some resonance here with what I've just been talking to you about, the first is setting strategic direction. That's kind of like Steve Radcliffe's future, isn't it? The second is building and sustaining relationships, engagement. And the third is delivering results, getting things done. So it's almost exactly the same. But the beauty of this model is that it's the interactions between the three of those that is important. So, you can have a great strategic direction, but unless you're planned and organised, you will not get the sort of quality delivery that you're probably looking for. You can have a bunch of people that are really bought in, great relationships, everyone gets on, there's real harmony, but unless those people are working as a unit and they're aligned, they're focused on the strategic direction that you're trying to achieve, then you might have a load of people who are doing some great stuff, but it's actually not adding up to what you want it to add up to. And then finally, this is about leadership. This is about you getting the best out of others, not about you doing everything. So, you can have this group of people who are really engaged. There can be a really strong vision. But if you really want to get great delivery, it's about you empowering, it's about you delegating, it's about you creating great teams. And it's those teams then that really help make that delivery happen. So that's the David Pendleton model. The other thing I like about it is that they identify within the model kind of two axes. So going from top to bottom, the top half of the model really is about thinking about the future, where the bottom is much more about the nitty-gritty, the everyday, the here and now, the answering the emails and stuff that you just need to do, solving a problem with a student or a member of staff or whatever it is. Whereas if we're thinking about the left to right, on the right there you've got the focus much more about people, through whom and with whom you're delivering, whereas on the left it's much more about getting those jobs done that you need to get done. And I don't know about you, but when I was a leader, and I'm just asking you to reflect now, probably you're thinking, and I get dragged to the left and the bottom most days. That's the reality of leadership in schools. What great leaders do though, and what we really try and encourage leaders at Leadership Matters to do, is to make time for yourself, to have the opportunity to think about the people that you're working with and how you can get the best out of them, and to think about, take a step back, kind of a helicopter view of how we're doing strategically on the goals that we set for ourselves. And that's the trick. That is the trick, because it's very easy, and it happened to me when I was a middle leader, it happened to me when I was a senior leader. I mean, when I was a head of year, kind of like just taking work off everyone and doing it for them was what I thought I was supposed to be doing, until I realised that wasn't really leadership. So that's the basic model. But underneath that, and this is where I've layered something in, and we use this at Leadership Maths, we think it's really important, is you do need to have an understanding of yourself as a person, because we all bring predispositions to work. It doesn't mean to say that that defines how we have to be, but we all have things we like or are better at than other things. We have some things we don't like or aren't so good at. And I think it's important, because if we think about this model and all the things that leaders need to do, you'll be sitting there thinking, well, I'm better at that, or I'm not so good at that. And actually, it might mean you shy away from those things you're not so good at and just do the things you like. So knowing your own predispositions is really important, but also understanding the situation that you're in is really important too. Because what might be right as an action for one situation might be what's needed, for yours. What's right for you might not be what's right for you. So it's really important to understand both of those things. And if you do properly take some time to get to know those two things, you can then work out how you need to lead, not just what you need to do. Because the stuff in the circles is the jobs you need to do. They're the actions you need to take. But there are different ways of doing them. So just to finish on this point, if we're thinking about, let's say you decided, you know what, I need to make more time to be more strategic. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it might mean that I need to kind of come up with a bit of a plan, a bit of a vision, and sell that to everyone and say, come on guys, this is what we're going to do, come with me. And you're being quite directive, really. It's your idea and you're saying, this is what we're going to do, come with me. Now, if you're working with a team of people who are not very good, maybe they're quite young, they're newer, less experienced, or they've just not had good training or development, and their results aren't very good at the moment, probably that's exactly the right approach, because they'll be thinking, yes, at last, someone who knows what they're doing, I'll follow them. Whereas if you were to use that approach with a high-performing team who were getting good results and who knew what they were doing and quite experienced, they'd probably be thinking, well, hang on a minute, what are you doing coming in here and telling us what to do? We're doing a good job, thank you very much. Back off. So I think you need to understand the situation, but you also need to understand what are you likely to do so you can manage that as well in the way that you operate. The last thing I want to share with you by way of kind of introduction to all of this is you'll be pleased to know, ladies and gentlemen, that your leadership will make a difference to the results. The things that you do, all of the actions that we've just been talking about on that last slide, they do make a difference to the results that you're going to get for your pupils. And that's good to know. Not 100%. The stuff that happens, I don't need to tell you, the stuff that happens in schools and in families over which you've got no control, you do your best. But leadership does make a big difference. We know that. All the research says it. So what then is the gap in between the leadership and the results? Because you've got the leadership input there, and then you've got the results that you get, and it's an indirect relationship rather than a direct one. What is it? What are the stages that take you there? Well, the first thing you create as a leader with the team that you're working with is you create a culture. You create the way we do things around here in your team. It's what, if I came to your school, it's what I would see, the teachers, the pupils, even the parents. It's what I would see and hear going on. It's what's happening. That's the culture. And it's what typically happens. How well, how fast, and to what standard people are doing things. That's the culture. But it's not the only thing that your leadership creates. The second thing that your leadership creates is it creates a climate. So this is how it feels to be in your team, both for the adults working in the school, but also, of course, for the pupils. And that's really important as well, because you'll know what it's like when you feel good about your job and feel good about your work, you put more into it, you're better at it. So a good culture will have a good impact on climate, and a good climate will, if people are feeling good about their work, they're going to be working even more in a more focused way, and the culture will improve. So these can knock on each other positively, and that's what you want to try and achieve with your leadership. Of course, if you get it wrong, and you may have all got experiences of where this may have happened, then you can have the reverse happening, where a poor culture leads to people feeling despondent, and then that means the culture drops back. And so you want to get this as a positive cycle rather than the opposite. If you get it right, you will be, because the combination of these two things, you'll be creating lots of what's known as discretionary effort. So discretionary effort is defined as what people do over and above what they have to do to not lose their job. Putting it bluntly, that's discretionary effort. We sometimes talk about people going the extra mile. It's everything above the minimum. And obviously you can choose to put your minimum where you want to put it, But ideally, you want a school full or a team full of people who are going the extra mile. And I don't mean by that they're working all the hours, because they're probably doing that already. What I mean is when they're at work, they're working in a really focused way, and they're always reflecting and thinking, how can I do that better tomorrow? That's what you want when you've got really good, strong discretionary effort going on in the school. So, to try and simplify that, if we put it all into one kind of summary model, and this underpins the whole way we think about leadership at Leadership Matters, it looks like this. So it starts off with you thinking about your personal qualities. What are my predispositions? How do I tend to behave? And we spend a lot of time at Leadership Matters thinking about that, and we've got all sorts of tools on our website that helps with this. It's really important to know yourself. Secondly, though, you need to properly understand your situation as well. You need to know what's the context I'm working in, because that will help you inform not only what you're going to do, but also how you're going to do it. So if you get those two things clear in your mind, you can be clearer then about what do I need to focus on, because in that leadership actions box, that's really where your FED sits, your future, engage, deliver, the stuff you're going to do. But as well as that, you've obviously got your leadership approach. What's your leadership style? How are you going to make that? What's the right way to make it happen, not just what you're going to do? And if you get both of those things right, then you're in the zone, because then what you're doing is you're going to be creating that really strong culture, that really strong climate, and together those will be building that discretionary effort in your team, and that will be delivering the results that you're looking forward to delivering in your school. So that's the model. That underpins everything in the Leadership Matters book, everything in the Leadership Matters LM video topics, and everything that I think, for me, makes a great school. Hope it's useful.